Hi, welcome to my video. My name is Alan Suero, and today I'm going to talk about the levels of consciousness and the scale of emotions. So, about the scale of emotions, you have seen probably in a hospital or in a visit to a psychologist. There are happy faces, there are several faces until one is sad and the other one is happy, and you can tell your emotions between those scales, or you can tell your level of pain in that scale. So that's the scale of your emotions, right? But the scale of consciousness, although it is similar up to some level, it is way more specific and also explains the different levels of awareness in your mind, not just how you feel. Okay? So these levels of consciousness start at 0 or below 0, which right below 0 would be suicide. Then above 0 would be depression, then anxiety, and so on until neutrality. Then after neutrality, you would have maybe courage, willingness, love, and things like that that are very positive and very spiritual on over the center of the scale of neutrality. And why is this scale important? Because it's important because you want to know your progress in the emotional scale. If you've been sad, depressed, anxious, you want to know how are you climbing these steps and how are you getting better. Well, you can tell because you start feeling better. But once you feel better, you want to know if there's more room to grow. And there is a lot of room to grow because this scale goes from 0 all the way to 1,000. And like I said, right above 0 is total despair, and at 1,000 are human beings like Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Gandhi, and people like that that were incredibly rich and incredibly high on the top of human consciousness. And right above that, 1,000, you're with God. You already died. So if they're living, they can live in that state all the way from 1,000. And human beings are capable of living from 0, because below 0, they're dead, and all the way up to 1,000. Most people live around 200 or below 200. Okay? This is the area of neutrality. And over a third of the population, which is about 40%, live below neutrality. And neutrality is that level where you can feel happy sometimes, but then you can feel not so happy, and maybe you feel indifferent sometimes, but then you feel some happiness, and when something good happens, you feel happy for a little bit, and then you fall down again to your neutrality, or feeling okay, but not so really happy. All right? So this scale is called the rat race. And they call it also the rat race because in this scale, you're always looking for something to make you happy. You're waiting for something to happen, you're working hard, or even if you don't work as hard, you're waiting for something to make you happier, and you're expecting happiness to come from the outside. All right? In this level, everything that happens around you has responsibility for you. So you're not really responsible for everything that happens to you. Whatever happens, it happened because it's an act of God, or it's somebody's fault, or the economy is not good. Always a reason out there for you to live in the situation you live in. And you're always chasing to see if you can make things better so you can be happier. Okay? And that is where most people live in. But there are higher levels of consciousness. Okay? There is the level of courage, the level of willingness, the level of love that are above the neutral level. And the first level above neutral is the level that is normally described as life happening for you rather than life happening to you. So in the level of neutrality, life is happening to you because you're not responsible for everything that happens to you. The responsibility for your situation and everything that happens to you is on the outside. It's out there. It's on that world that is represented in your mind. It's God's fault or somebody's fault or your family's fault or your grandfather's fault or God's fault. Okay? But when you release that blame and you take responsibility for yourself, then you can start moving from that level to the next level, which is courage, where you put all the responsibility on yourself. You take responsibility for everything that you don't think you're responsible for. You take responsibility for everything. You take responsibility for being alive. And once you do that, you take responsibility for everything that happens around you. And this act, or this process of taking responsibility for everything in your world, moves you from the scale of neutrality to the scale of courage, where things begin happening for you rather than to you. When something happens to me, that means that something else is responsible because it's happening to me. It's coming from outside to me. But when things are happening for me, that's because I'm responsible for them. And that's why they're happening for me, whether they are good or whether they are bad. In this level of consciousness, which means that you understand that everything is happening for you because you're responsible for everything, that's why it's called the level of courage. And in this level, you can actually feel peace, joy, and happiness most of the time. None of the levels of consciousness are a straight line. If you're in neutrality, you may feel happy sometimes and then drop, and then feel not so happy again, and that's how it goes. When you're on a higher level, you may drop to neutrality and then go back. You may touch a little bit under neutrality and then you may go back to your level. And that is where you are most of the time, where it goes up and down. So you can be in the level of courage up here and go to the level of willingness and love, and then come back down, the same as going a little bit lower and then coming back to the level of courage. And the thing and the comparison between the emotional scale and the levels of consciousness is that as you rise in your levels of consciousness, you rise in your emotional scale and you are happier. Once you are aware and you believe and you understand this emotional truth and universal truth, then you allow yourself to feel more happiness, more peace, and more joy in your life. And one very important thing about rising in these levels of consciousness and in your emotional scale is that in order to rise from neutrality, you must understand the universal truth that you can change your emotions and you treat yourself and see yourself with love, kindness, and compassion. This is the core of rising in your emotional scale and rising in your scale or your levels of consciousness. So this is going to be all for this video. If you want more information, there's a link down there in the description that takes you to my free course, Erase Sadness and Stress from Your Life, the Power of Self-Appreciation. You can also email me, or you can send a message when you get one of my emails. So I hope I see you on my course, or I'll see you on my next video.